Hi, welcome to Snowdrops Sunsets. My name's Terry, and today I would like to explore a concept I'm calling legal rape. Um, as the concept might suggest, this could potentially be triggering for some people. So please do take care of yourself through the process. If you have triggers, if you have sexual trauma in your past that you're aware of, obviously please take steps to keep yourself safe while you're listening to what I have to say. Thank you for being here and listening to what I have to say. I feel like it's very important, and I feel like the time is now that it needs to be said. Um, Even if nobody listens, I feel like I need to say this into the ether, and I'm very grateful that the internet will allow me to do that. If you haven't had sexual trauma that you're aware of in your past, and this brings up really, really strong emotions for you, that is a trigger. Potentially something has happened that might need to be addressed, and it might be worth seeking help and support to work through that trigger for you. Obviously, I'm no professional, no health professional or anything like that. But I do have experience overcoming trauma and dealing with triggers, so this is just forewarning. I feel like it's really, really. Excuse my looking down. I've got notes. This speaking to the camera thing is new for me, and I feel like it's really important what I would like to say. So I have made notes so I can try and keep on track, and I don't want to go off on too many tangents. It's a very big subject for me. It links to so many aspects of our culture, our society. So I'm trying to keep this video as direct as I can. Basically, I feel like it's so important to talk about this now because actually what's happening with the coronavirus situation, the way that it's being played out, the way the restrictions are being enforced on us, the way vaccinations are being introduced into us as a society, the way the discussion is being repressed, and because people are speaking up against it, they seem to be, they're being diminished, their voices are being diminished. And for me, it's amplifying this issue. It's just showing me clear as day how deep we are into this concept and this construct of legal rape. So I would really like to talk about it. First point I'd like to make is actually in today's society, rape is legal. I'm speaking from the UK. I live in the United Kingdom. And although it's in our law, we're taught rape is illegal. In fact, we're taught rape is very wrong. Rape is one of the worst crimes you can commit. In fact, in my opinion, it is the worst crime you commit, because actually, if you kill somebody, that person doesn't suffer. Well, they may suffer if they're being tortured, depending on how they die. But in essence, the person has died. They don't have to live with the effects of the trauma of the attack that caused them to die. When someone is raped, actually they then have to live with the effects of that attack for the rest of their lives, not for the rest of their lives, sorry. I do think we can overcome trauma, but that will be a part of their story forever. It can't be taken back. People can definitely recover from rape trauma, but it's always going to be part of your story. And actually, I feel like the whole concept of rape is used as an illusion. Our current police system in the UK has massive, massive resources that are used to, as far as I can see it, and all the evidence I've gathered, that their resources is used to control victims of abuse. When people are traumatized, when they're abused, they act out, they misbehave, they become disconnected from themselves, from humanity, from society, and people act out. That acts out through addictions, through entitlement, through all sorts of defense mechanisms that cause what we would class as antisocial behavior. And the police, the whole police system, is completely geared towards just diminishing that antisocial behaviour, keeping those people in check. And rightly so. I mean, I'm not saying that, we shouldn't try and overcome crime, but I'm saying that the root cause of crime, which is abuse of power, mostly at the heart of it, that causes victimhood, stems from an abuse of power, which, as far as I can see, the deepest abuse of power is rape. And actually, when you look at the statistics, the facts around rape, we know that hardly any rapists are ever prosecuted. I mean, the amount, I'm not going to go into statistics because I have gathered a lot of evidence and I will be presenting it potentially in a written way, so it can be easy to read. But we know that the amount of rapes that are actually reported is much less than the amount of rapes that actually happen. We know that of those rapes that are reported, the amount that are investigated is a very small amount. We know from the amount of investigated rapes that the ones that get anywhere near any sort of prosecution is a very small amount. And then the ones that actually go through prosecution to actually get a conviction is a minuscule amount. So it's actually completely illusionary that rape is illegal. And the very, very few rapists that do actually get prosecuted, they're very unusual forms of rape, shall we say. I'd also like to be clear that when I'm using the word rape, I mean, I do actually mean rape, but I'm also including in that any sexual violence, molestation, child abuse, any sort of aggravated sexual assault, any sexual assault, anything that is taking away the autonomy of our own bodies and is not considering our right to consent to how our bodies are used. Okay. The legal definition of rape, when you look on the police websites, the government websites, whatever, you can have a look. I'm going to really try and simplify it because obviously it's long. Essentially, rape is any sort of sexual touch, any sort of penetration without consent. What I found amazingly scary is that actually as a society we don't even understand what consent is. And the police created this little video. It's on YouTube again. You can search for that. I'll try and put these links in the description and stuff. But the police have created this consent video that uses the analogy of making tea to try and explain what consent is. Now, the first time I watched it, I was like triggered. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, no, I don't think the police understand what consent is. It was very triggering and very confusing, and I thought, no, I've obviously misunderstood. The police have misunderstood what consent is. So I watched the video again. I think I've watched it 2 or 3 times, and oh my goodness, the police don't even seem to be able to explain consent and why lack of consent is a problem. Now, this analogy they've used of the tea, yes, the analogy works to a degree, but they've missed out vital parts that actually cause most of the mess around rape culture and around sexual assault and around sexual abuse. So, for example, the first question in this video is, would you like a cup of tea? If the person says yes, go ahead and make them tea. No! Stop, police! That's not how it works. If someone said, yes, I would like tea, we might ask another question like, what kind of tea would you like? Would you like black tea? Would you like Earl Grey tea? Maybe you prefer chamomile tea. I have mint tea. What kind of tea do you like? Would be the next question. The person then chooses the tea. I think I'll have an English tea, please. The following question then would be, how do you like your English tea? Would you like it with milk and sugar? Do you like it black? How would you like your tea? Then obviously the person can respond and say, as I do, I like my English tea with a little bit of milk, soy milk, please, and a little bit of brown sugar. That's how I like my English tea. We've just found consent. We can now drink tea together. Going back to the analogy, if the person says, I don't want tea, and apparently in the police video, the person can then go ahead and make the tea, but don't force them to drink it. No police. No police. If somebody says, no, I wouldn't like tea, the next question would be, well, do you mind if I have some tea? Would you mind sitting with me while I drink the tea I like? Then if the person says, no, go ahead, then you can have the tea. You have your tea, they watch you have the tea, everyone's happy with the tea. But otherwise, the whole rest of the video, okay, fits. Yes, if someone says they don't want tea, don't force them to drink the tea. If they're passed out, don't force them to drink tea. The rest of the video is fine. But that first part is the fundamental danger that we're currently facing in society around consent. Just because, especially when we now bring it back to sex, right? Just because somebody has consented to tea or sex does not mean that they are consenting to the idea of tea or sex that you have in your head. In order to get consent, you need to discuss what it is you're consenting to. And the whole idea of consent is that moment by moment by moment, experience through experience through experience, we have autonomy. And as souls, we want the right to be able to have the experiences we want in our lives. If we don't get the experiences we want in our lives, if that's taken away from us, it causes trauma. Just had to get that one out there. There are a lot of effects of trauma. Going back to what I first said, people who experience trauma act out. It causes all sorts of issues in your life when it's not healed. And as a society, we're terrible at healing trauma, which is a whole other subject. So again, I'll discuss that. I'll cover that in a different way. But what this video is basically showing me is that we have a society where we don't understand consent, and that consent is assumed not based on reality, in fact. When we look at rape, in particular, rape is not about sex. The problem with rape is not to do with the sex. It doesn't matter whether the rape was violent or non-violent, as in it doesn't matter whether the sex that occurred within the rape was aggressive sex or, rough sex. It's got nothing to do with it. Obviously, if somebody's physically harmed during a rape or an assault, then it'll have additional traumas. But actually, you can have a gentle rape. Like somebody can, if someone might in their head be thinking they're making love to you, but if you don't want them to, it's still rape. The actual physical act of the touch or what